I started commercial fishing with my father when I was 12 years old, and I was with him every summer. I've reflected on it, and I never had a summer on the beach until I was 36. Every summer was always spent away working on my own in later years, or earlier, deckhanding with my father. And so you get accustomed to this independent lifestyle that takes you to just these fabulous places on the coast, all the way from Prince Rupert to Juan de Fuca in the south, the west coast of the island, and the Charlottes and the central coast. And I mean, it's our coast is just filled with incredible sights, incredible places. And so when I graduated from high school, I actually paid for my first 3 years at UBC by fishing. And I did that for a while, and then I realized, wait a minute, this is not what I want to do. So then I went commercial fishing in a full manner. Had a very fortunate herring season in 1979. That was when the price was at its absolute all-time historic high. And purchased my first boat that winter, that spring. And I started my independent career fishing in 1979. So, and I did that for about 15 years, and then transitioned into everything that we've done here with Marine Link.
The gold, it was plenty, it filled him with greed, till rivers of meadow were all he would bleed.
I always just did winter's work with the original owner, was a fellow named Al Meadows. And Al and I were fishing partners. We fished on the west coast of Vancouver Island and north of Vancouver Island, and traded information back and forth, and generally haunted the same parts of the world. And he had started Marine Link with a totally different concept. He moved it up here and realized that he had something that he could grow with. So he asked me to help him. I worked every winter. It was basically full-time work in the winter all the time. And then in 1991, I left commercial fishing, and I started full-time with the company and became a partner. There was myself, Al, and a gentleman named Tim Campbell. And the three of us built Marine Link into its first version, I guess I would call it. We essentially followed the opportunity to deliver freight and move people around the coast, just picking up on age-old ideas that had sort of been lost.
So leaving his pick and his pan behind.
Well, I came in with the intention of becoming a partner right away, and that happened. It took us a few years to sort it all out. But what we found was that we were growing so rapidly in the early 90s that none of us had a chance to actually work on the boats. What we found was we couldn't find people to run the office, to do the maintenance, to expand the business, but we could find people to operate as engineers, operate as skippers, operate as mates. So we quickly transitioned into shoreside roles in management. So by the fall of 1991, I was doing all of the vessel management, doing all of the vessel operations, lining up the crew, making sure the freight was there, having the dialogue with the customers, and essentially putting the pieces of the puzzle together. It's Tetris is what it is. No, I don't get to go in the water that often. I'd love to. I'm out there either for a special event, or I'm out there for some sort of a complication or a disaster. That's generally when I get a chance to get out on the water. So when we go in the water now, it's pleasure, right? We go just for ourselves. I took over full ownership of Marine Link in 2006, And since then, we've adapted to the changes that the coast has given us. So we look a lot different today than we did back in 1991. You get to a point where you understand the coast provides you with your opportunities. You know, you just have to be able to go out and figure out how to take advantage of them. The Aurora Explorer is a landing craft style. All of our barges serve a purpose to land on a beach and to take heavy equipment and general freight on and off. The Aurora Explorer is the vessel that carries freight and passengers. It is restricted to about 180 tons of freight and 12 passengers, and we make 32 sailings a year doing that in that combination. The appreciation over time for what our passenger sailings mean to people. I think that's one of the things that always sort of amazes me. We have had people over a 15-year period do 18 sailings. When the Aurora Explorer sails, usually at least a third of her passengers have sailed with us before. So we have this huge returning group, and these people just absolutely love it. And that's always a misunderstood piece of awesomeness, I guess. You know, they're not interested in dressing for dinner. They don't need a show in a 1,200 person theater. They don't need a pool or a hot tub on board. They're more interested in an intimate experience, small vessel, 12 passengers, 6 crew, pretty well run of the boat, except for those areas that are safety related. Opportunity to talk and meet with the crew, opportunity to see exactly what everybody does, and then the opportunity to go into these smaller locations that larger vessels just can't go into, right? They're usually adventurous. We are fully 100% sold out for 2023, and we are making sales for 2024 already. So we're fortunate in that regard, yeah. But it is because it's so unique. You know, these folks absolutely love to see what we're showing them. And we lose sight of that because we work inside it all the time. So having them remember just how special where we are is, that's important. We work where the roads aren't. We move heavy equipment, we move general freight, we move a lot of goods for the forest industry, we move a lot of dangerous goods. We are the largest carrier of explosives in the coast in British Columbia. And we have this vessel that does the passengers. We have the Aurora Explorer, which is such a fun thing to do because we actually get to wear clean clothes when we do that. So, and we have to put a different standard into the vernacular of the workplace. We've done a pile of stuff. We've delivered totem poles. We've moved First Nations canoes. We've delivered rubber tired and track equipment that's some of the biggest in the world. We've done a lot of assistance for laying fiber optic submarine cable as well. The single biggest challenge to anything we do is usually current, tide, and weather. You roll them into that, and achieving the delivery in the most complicating circumstances where the landing doesn't allow for it. You haven't got the right angle. The equipment is too low. Somebody wants to move something and keep it in pristine condition, and it's just impossible to do that sometimes. So yeah, but we've had some really interesting stuff over the years. So. Connections with the customers are as important as the connections with the coast. If we don't understand their needs, then we can't answer their questions, or we can't provide the service that we need to. Understanding what they do and how they do it is imperative to being successful out there. Some of these locations, you only get one chance a day. We have locations that we make deliveries at. We have internal rules. You're not allowed to make a delivery there except at high tide, slack tide, and daylight conditions. We have about 3 locations on the coast where we have an internal restriction. You will only transit through this rock pile, this tight passage, on a daylight slack tide. We've got those safety elements in there. And that comes to understanding the coast. You got to understand the customers in the same manner. They are an incredible group of people that solve problems all day long with ease that just would mystify other people. The resourcefulness available for people who live and work on the coast, it's pretty amazing. There's inspiration, and it comes from the coast. This is still a fun job to do. What makes it rewarding is that it's always a little different challenge. This is not a ferry that goes between the same 2 locations all day long and does essentially the same thing. Every trip is a little bit different from the last. If you aren't ready to tackle those challenges of unloading lumber into a small boat so it can get to the beach, staying on location, delivering pilings like that, or an entire barge load of equipment that you have a half-hour window on the right tide. It's those challenges that I think that's what really makes it interesting. Yeah, Uganda Passage is a really unique little place between Cortes Island and the end of Shark Spit that comes off of Marina Island, and it's really, really tight. It's a tight dogleg, so a boat like the Aurora is about as big as you ever want to take through there. We come and go comfortably because it's part of our backyard. It's the same as Seymour Narrows. People all over the west coast of North America are spooked by Seymour Narrows. You have to respect it. There's no doubt about that. But once you learn it and you stay within that level of respect, then everything's good. But Uganda Pass it's just really, really tight. You approach it. When you're in the middle of the pass, you actually have to make a 90-degree turn, almost in a stationary position to be able to continue on. Now that's with a vessel the size of the Aurora. Now, the Aurora Explorer, unlike other tugs and barges, is amazingly nimble. She has twin screw and she has a bow thruster, an azimuth thruster in the bow. So she can literally turn on her own length, and she can maneuver sideways, she can maneuver on an angle. Without that, you wouldn't be going through Uganda Passage. Yeah.
I've been working on the Aurora for about 32 years. I've been captain almost. Yeah, 1995 is when I got my captain's papers and did my first trip. It was funny because back then a lot of the guests would go, well, you can't be the captain, you're too young. But I don't get that anymore. Pays to have a few gray whiskers. It gives them some confidence. In 92, I think it was, when the Aurora first came on the scene, and then we operated as a freight boat for a couple of years and then started doing the guests. And we thought it was huge, you know, compared to the smaller landing craft, the Marine Link 2. It's like this thing was a ship, you know? Yeah, well, it was pretty exciting to have a vessel of that size. Everybody had their own stateroom, you know, you had more than one washroom. There was all this space that we just weren't used to. For our passenger season, it stays the same. We have 6 staterooms that can 2 people to each room, and we always have 6 crew. So as long as we have a full complement of guests, we have 18 souls on board. Our average speed is 7.5 knots. It's not very fast. I call it a stately 7.5 knots to our guests. Lots of time to soak up the scenery and see what's going on. Nothing's going to be in a blur going by. You can spin the Aurora within her own length. It's really nice for going into fragile docks, fish farms and that. You know, you can just come in nice and soft and real gentle. They've got to have a little bit of adventure in their soul because they may have heard stories, but you know, we don't even know exactly what we're getting into. We have a pretty good idea, but every trip is different and it's an adventure, and most of the time it's pretty smooth, but once in a while there's a few bumps. So as long as people are willing to put up with a few bumps here and there, everything else is pretty nice. Well, occasionally we might get into some weather. You know, we're very careful that we don't go out in too big a weather, but you can get stuck in weather, like in Johnson Straits, be halfway down between Broken Islands and Fanny Island, and wind comes up and you get caught. So you got to just keep going. So I've been up in the wheelhouse where it's, you know, it's probably gusting up to 40 knots, and you know, I'm a little bit nervous about how the guests are doing, and I can hear them downstairs giggling away and having supper, drinking wine, and having a great old time. So it doesn't impact them always. You know, some folks are susceptible to seasickness and are a little bit nervous, but usually that goes away once they're out here for a couple of days. And it's really nice when you have a group of nice passengers, and it pretty much always is. Delivering freight, getting the freight delivered on time, and keeping all of our freight customers happy. On this vessel, there's a little extra challenge. We've got 12 guests on board at a time, and so keeping them happy as well and entertained, and trying to fit everything all in to the day it can be a challenge. But by the end of the trip, when you've had a good trip and the freight's delivered and nothing's damaged and the passengers are all happy, it's very rewarding. I'm looking forward to another 3 or 4 years out here anyways, maybe 5 or 6. If health holds up, and they'll keep me, you know. As you age, you know, things happen with your eyes, with your ears, you know. Some fellas have had heart issues out here, and so yeah, that's one thing that could definitely slow you down fast. I think sometimes guys have been forced into retirement when they didn't really have to, you know, because of the health issue was not something that really impaired their ability to navigate the boat safely. I can see if, you know, they couldn't see suddenly or be able to hear, but if, you know, if you can still hear pretty good and see okay, and yeah, I think it is a bit discriminatory. Every 2 years, after a certain age, after I think it's 60, that you've got to go every 2 years to get your Your marine medical? Yeah, it's something that definitely has been more on my mind in recent years, because it's going to happen eventually. You know, nobody's going to live forever or be able to work on the water forever. Even if you wanted to, you couldn't. I'm going to have to put a ship's wheel in my living room and keep my view of the ocean, because I will miss it. I consider myself very lucky to have had the life I've had on the water. Very lucky. Yeah, it's wonderful.